Welcome to Let's Talk Writing with Kirsten and Edwina,
coming to you from Madangi country
in Babinda, Far North Queensland, Australia.
This episode we're talking about editing and self-editing. So Kirsten, is writing really rewriting?
Yes, it is. All writing is rewriting, trust me. And it is actually really useful to do that. But I would say make sure you don't write and edit on the same day or in the same session, because that really will slow you down. And I can tell you from experience, because I used to do this for years, write something and go, all right, let me just edit that. And you just keep polishing the same paragraph, the same scene, the same chapter, and that might not even make it into the final version of your book. So save yourself the trouble and keep writing. Write a first draft, write it quickly, keep moving forward. And then, and I think I said it at another point, the advice actually comes from Stephen King in his memoir, which is On Writing. It's one of those books that every writer should read at least once in their lives.
It's got a great bit on craft at the end.
Yes. And so he says you write the first draft with the doors firmly closed. You write it simply for yourself. And I like to think of it, you write the first draft as you're telling the story to yourself with all that detail, and then I got up and made myself a cup of tea, and 5 steps before you actually get to the plot point that really should be in the book. You write the second draft with the doors open, because you're writing it, you might give that draft to your beta readers, or it might be your 5th draft, but let's just say the next step is to write a draft where you think about your reader and you edit it then in a way where you really look at, does that scene have to be there? Does it drive the plot forward? And if it doesn't, it has to go. So you really need to learn how to be ruthless and how to kill your darlings.
Yes, and that's hard. So I always make a separate folder of good bits for later, because a lot that you excerpt out, you can use and publish as short pieces as well. So it's never wasted. But yes, I like to think of that first draft as you are creating the stone that you carve your story from. You first create the big blobby excavation thing. It's a big ugly rock, and then we chip away with it. We find the rough form, and then at the end we start to polish. So there are 3 real stages to editing. There's the structural edit, where you look at the big picture. Is the structure working? Is there enough happening?
Yeah.
Is there too much happening? A lot of new writers, especially first books, try and cram too much in. They've got all of their passions, all of their interests in. They've got refugees and, homelessness and this and a whole handful of topics where really it may be best to focus really tightly in on one. So just looking that you have a narrow enough scope. Structural edit, we're also looking at things like characters. Are there too many? Would you be best to conglomerate those 5 best friends that your protagonist has and making maybe 2 friends?
Which is what you made me do with my book.
Yes. Because a lot of names are confusing for people. Anyone who's tried to read Lord of the Rings, you'll know. All of those names and very similar names, it's very confusing. But also, is your character somebody we want to hang around with? And especially in memoir, we're looking at you as that character. And
that is where Edwina was very helpful in telling me you are actually being too harsh on yourself. So I went with the assumption, a character that is engaging to the reader needs to be a flawed character, because we don't actually want to follow the perfect character, because we don't identify with the perfect person, because we're all flawed. So I overdid it to my own detriment. So this is where Edwina came in handy with the structural, and I said,
real jumpy German she comes across as in the book.
Got to cut back the anger a little bit and put in these nice scenes too. Yes, we want the anger, and it's justified to have it there, but we also want the sweet moments and the sweetness. And so that is just, at the structural edit side also you can look at that. So don't go line editing yet. So line editing is when you really go with a fine tooth comb, line through line, and you pick up words that are overused. For example, I have a forever knotted stomach, so don't. I use the word thrilling a lot. No.
But yes, and so line editing is really looking at the sentence.
Yes.
So you're looking at how those sentences are working. I've been very lucky. Kirsten's writing is really actually very clear. So most of the time it was just picking up on word repetition, but we're also looking for idea repetition.
Yes.
Scene repetition, where this is another common error of new writers, where you'll show us a wonderful scene where we have a great moment of emotional impact, but then you'll go and have the person talking about it and just telling what happened exactly as it happened to somebody else. No, unless they are giving a very skewed version of those events to somebody else, which makes it interesting, then that has to go. So the greatest tool that I know for looking at a structural edit on your own, so once you've written your first draft, I would go through and just tidy it up, look at all the typos, have a read through. It's also a really good idea to have a good break between it.
Yes.
So at least a few weeks where you go off and refill your writing tank or write some other new project, or
You can't see the mistakes anymore.
you can't see the mistakes anymore. Then I would also print it out. I know, sorry trees, but just reuse the paper and put it in the recycling bin when you're done. Because you can see it much better when
Yes.
it's not on the screen. And then you can go through and you just go through with a highlighter and you might squiggly bits like, oh, I'm not sure that bit's working, or stars on the bits you really like. But while you're doing that, I want you to have a pen and paper next to you or your computer and write down a list of the scenes. So with every scene, you write, where are we? Who's in it? Main action. And is it making us feel hopeful, or is it making us feel fearful?
For the protagonist.
For the protagonist, for the goal of the story.
Yes.
So how is it moving? It's a script editor I've worked with, she just used to put a plus sign or a negative sign. And you can also put the word count, so you have an idea of, have I perhaps given a scene that's not that important too many words? But if it's a meeting scene, and maybe you've, and this is a common feature of especially memoirs, but also fiction, people will reach a really interesting emotional point and then avoid it.
Yes.
Like, we'll do it in a line. You did it, didn't you?
Yes. Well, this is where I actually have a writing buddy, and we share chapters once a week. In fact, we have been
That's
doing.
a great idea.
And so she says, look, or I say to her, you're just stopping short of exploring that moment further. Drill down deeper and deeper and deeper. And often those are actually the moments where, in a memoir, for example, you don't want to go, because those are the pain points. But those will be the stories that will engage the reader the most. Another useful tip there I picked up from Neil Gaiman. In fact, he said, just scan your pages and see, do you have the balance right between scenes, between narration, between dialogue? You could even highlight them in different colors, and then see if, for example, we tend, especially as new writers, to tell a lot. Wherever you can, put it into a scene. And so often, for example, I have then had to rewrite something and make it into a mini scene. A scene is when
they
something
don't have to be
happens.
big, and that's the thing. When you're making those changes, it can often just be a little line here and there.
Yeah.
But starting with your scene list, and then of course hire somebody to help you with your edit, like me.
Of course, and I would highly recommend Edwina. But don't go towards an editor too early. Yes.
No.
And the line edit is the last thing you do. I mean, the proofreading, rather.
Yeah,
When you
so
pick up all
after the line
typos.
edit, where we're looking at the writing style, then there's the proof where
Yes,
we're looking for
yes.
typos and things
Yeah.
like that.
And just finally, as I said at the beginning, don't edit and write at the same time. They're two very separate processes. So when you write, you really want to give yourself permission to write from the heart, to write from your core. When you edit, you put your editor's brain on. But they're two different things at two
Yes,
different parts of the
yes.
brain. So keep them separate.
Yes.
And happy writing.
Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Writing with Kirsten and Edwina.
And here are our links. Please follow us and leave comments. Happy writing.
That's good.